Hey everyone. For a long time now, the only people who have been talking about aliens is just conspiracy theorists. But outside that, nobody has really come out to talk about their experiences that could be used as actual evidence. And that's because over history, nobody actually credible from the government has come out to expose that kind of information. The only main piece of evidence people have used over time is really low quality military footage of UFOs. But that's all really people kind of had. So over time, they just sort of forgot about these kinds of pieces of evidence. However, recently, someone majorly important from the government has come out to talk about their experiences in the military and talk about what they know of the government being involved with aliens and UFOs. This quarter included him talking about his time in the military, and witnesses he's talked to, as well as people he knows are involved in this. This man's name is David Grusch, and the reason why he's the first person in history to actually come out and be this massive in the news for talking about this kind of stuff is because he's had an experience with actual government groups that are involved in this kind of stuff with aliens, so he's actually credible.
This is an important issue and I'm grateful for your time. My name is David Charles Grusch. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years, both in the U.S. Air Force, both active duty, Air National Guard, and Reserve, at the rank of major, and most recently from 2021 to 2023, at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, at the GS-15 civilian level, which is the military equivalent of a full bird colonel. I was my agency's co-lead in unidentified anomalous phenomena and transmedium object analysis, as well as reporting to the UAP task force, UAPTF, and eventually, once it was established, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, AARO.
One of his key roles that I just mentioned now was being part of the AARO group, which was a task force created last year to investigate UFOs and UAP incidents. UAP being unidentified aerial phenomenons, basically being spaceships, which is what makes this pretty credible, because where most military personnel come out to talk about this, they don't really have all evidence and information to back themselves up. But Grusch has directly worked for a group that has meant to tackle these kind of issues, so a lot of people have wanted to hear what he has to say. And for a long time, he's wanted to share this information to the public about aliens, going as far as to talk to 40 witnesses about their experience with UFOs over a 4-year-long personal investigation. He even had a court hearing last year that didn't go very well, to be honest, because he didn't have all information to back himself up, and what little information he did have was under heavy restrictions by the government to be kept classified. However, when there was a new person in charge of AARO, who was much more lenient on Grusch for what he could share, Grusch has actually become a whistleblower and come out with the information he had, including the fact that he was confident that the government had UAPs in possession and were repairing them as part of a Pentagon program that's lasted over decades.
At the time, due to my extensive executive level intelligence support duties, I was cleared to literally all relevant compartments and in a position of extreme trust, both in my military and civilian capacities. I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it.
Even though he didn't talk about it more, it's still crazy to imagine over years, UFOs have been crash landed on Earth and have been collected and been repaired as well. Even now, the idea of them trying to repair it is still pretty crazy, but of course it's not fully known if they reach the point where one of them fully works. He's even talked about funding that's gone to this program, which reminds us a lot, because it's not easy to repair spaceships. So I believe at the very least, more information about this program should be revealed to the public, especially because a lot of funding has gone into this that's been pulled from other programs that people believe in. I should also probably mention now that you're gonna hear Grusch answer a lot of questions by saying he can only talk about an SCIF, which is a sensitive compartmented information facility, basically being a private core that isn't documented by the news and should shared to the public, which means that he definitely has more information to share, but he can't because it's classified, which is pretty scary because even this small amount of information that he has shared is a lot and has already tracked up so much attention from everywhere. And the idea of there being deeper secrets is terrifying because the biggest thing he talked about on that court hearing was the fact that UAPs have crash landed on Earth before, and there have been officials who have gone there to retrieve them and investigate what was piloting them. Grusch went on to interview people who injured by the UAP crashings and search through documentation of what was found there, which he described being non-humans were piloting these UAPs.
You've stated that the government is in possession of potentially non-human spacecraft. Based on your experience and extensive conversations with experts, do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and you may or may not be able to answer my last question, and maybe we get into a skiff at the next hearing that we have, but who in the government, either what agency, sub-agency, what contractors, who should be called into the next hearing about UAPs, either in a public setting or even in a private setting? And you probably can't name names, but what agencies or organizations, contractors, et cetera, do we need to call in to get these questions answered, whether it's about funding, what programs are happening, and what's out there?
I can give you a specific cooperative and hostile witness list of specific individuals that were in those.
And how soon can we get that list?
I'm happy to provide that to you after the hearing.
Super. Thank you. And I yield back.
The fact that he described it as non-human is insane, followed by the fact like he said like what he saw and what his wife saw was pretty disturbing. So even though he hasn't really like gone outright to say like it was aliens, him saying it was non-human was basically like already confirming that. Not to mention, he even has a list of people who have been like investigating like these non-humans that he could share with the Congress in a skiff. And you can see in his face the confidence he has with the fact like he actually has like actual like legitimate like evidence that he could use to like back himself up. Compared to his previous experience of talking about this, it's good to see like he finally has like much more at his disposal they could use to make himself seem like more credible. And this is definitely a small detail, but you can actually see the court being like more on his side, trying to defend him, trying to make himself seem like more credible. With one person proving that he's taking like a very large risk by being a whistleblower, where he even said like he was scared for his life for talking about this.
Mr. Grush, in speaking to you yesterday, I just wanted to follow up on Representative Raskin's questions. In the last couple of years, have you had incidences that have caused you to be in fear for your life for addressing these issues?
Yes, personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want everyone to note that he's coming forward in fear of his life. To put in perspective, if they were really not scared about this information coming out, why would someone be intimidated like that?
And I don't blame him, because it's very dangerous to like, go out in public and talk about this kind of like information about the government being involved in this kind of stuff, which is meant to be kept classified. So if he went out and shared like every piece of information he knew, there'd be a huge uproar from people to talk about this, which is why I understand him being very cautious and like waiting for like future skips to like talk about it more. And there will definitely be more court hearings in the future, because some people are like kind of skeptical of like his claims as well, of like what he said. With one man in particular who's like kind of like suspicious of the fact like the UAPs could like travel light years, but like somehow just fuck up at the Earth and crash land there, which to be honest is a pretty fair suspicion to have. But Grush did give like an actual like fair scientific like reason behind it.
My view has been that we are billions of light years away from any other system. And the concept that an alien species that's technologically advanced enough to travel billions of light years gets here and somehow is incompetent enough to not survive Earth or crashes is something that I find a little bit far-fetched. And with that being said, you have mentioned that there's interdimensional potential. Could you expound on that?
Yeah, to answer your first question, and I'm here as a fact witness and expert, but I will give you a theoretical framework, at least to work off, to kind of espouse crashes, regardless of your level of sentience, right? Planes crash, cars crash, n number of sorties, however high, a small percentage are going to end in mission failure, if you will, as we say in the Air Force. And then in terms of multidimensionality, that kind of thing, the framework that I'm familiar with, for example, is something called the holographic principle. It derives itself from general relativity and quantum mechanics, and that is, if you want to imagine a 3D object such as yourself casting a shadow onto a 2D surface, that's the holographic principle. So you can be projected, quasi-projected from higher dimensional space to lower dimensional. It's a scientific trope that you can actually cross, literally, as far as I understand, but there's probably guys with PhDs that we could probably argue about that.
But you have not seen any documentation that that's what's occurring?
Only a theoretical framework discussion, yes.
Okay.
He basically talked about science theories of why they would like easily reach Earth but then crash once they got there. Which even though some people may not be happy with the answer, you just have to understand that there's only a theory that he offered on why like this happened, because neither him or the government fully know everything about like life in space. So I think he had a pretty fair defense, especially because his aim with this court hearing wasn't to prove like how UAPs have landed on Earth, but to shed some light on the fact some have been found and collected, and just like motivate the government to make like a more transparent system to help witnesses like report sightings.
As you know, I've suffered retaliation for my decision, but I am hopeful that my actions will ultimately lead to a positive outcome of increased transparency.
In particular, he's concerned with the fact like pilots, both military and commercial, don't really have a system to report you whenever they see something suspicious they can't really explain. With their only outlets if we're unpopular and talking about it, where now people might believe them, which is pretty shitty because these are people, most who are very honorable, who are just being like ignored despite the fact that they have actual like evidence and like, footage of what they have encountered during that time. But like I said in the beginning of the video, this kind of footage is like slowly forgotten about because it's never followed by the government saying like it's actually like concrete evidence of UFOs, so people just end up like making theories about it. But Grush has taken the extra step to bring two witnesses who have experienced like UFO sightings. One of them being a former Navy commander, David Fravor, and the other being a former Navy pilot, Ryan Graves. The first man I mentioned was with three other pilots when they saw an object like hovering below their jets and above the ocean during 2004. He couldn't see any wings, rotor, exhaust coming from the object, so he decided to like look at it closer. But when he did, it suddenly like ascended to him at the same time, where it then disappeared. It reappeared a few seconds later, but this time it was 60 miles away. So naturally, Flavor was so bewildered by this that he couldn't give like an actual like logical explanation about what happened. Then voicing his disdain for the fact like at the time he didn't really have like a powerful method to like report this sighting.
A few questions for Mr. Favor. As an expert naval aviator, have you ever seen an object that looked and moved like the Tic Tac UAP?
No.
Did the Tic Tac UAP move in such a way that defied the laws of physics?
The way we understand them, yes.
Many dismiss UAP reports as classified weapons testing by our own government, but in your experience as a pilot, does our government typically test advanced weapon systems right next to multi-million-dollar jets without informing our pilots?
No, we have test ranges for that.
It took over 15 years for your encounter with the Tic Tac to be declassified. Do you feel there was a good reason to prevent lawmakers from having access to this footage?
No, I just think it was ignored when it happened, and it just sat somewhere in a file. Never got reported.
In a drawer. It happens a lot up here. Shocker.
The second military official who was brought in as a witness was Ryan Graves, who received a report in 2003 about an object flying above Vandenberg Air Force Base, which is a much crazier story than the one before, and not to mention the fact that it's even crazy that like, it happened around the same time, 2004 and 2003. The incident started around 8:45 a.m. where a group of people near the Air Force Base spotted a 100-yard sided object, which was about the size of a football field, flying up in the sky. The group of people also reported seeing like similar objects flying around the sky that day, but the reason why you might not know about the story as much as the one previously because it wasn't really covered by the news when it came out. I'm glad that these two men were able to like come out and like tell their stories to like be covered by the press because like they rekindled like national interest on this kind of stuff, and they definitely shouldn't be forgotten because there's like actual like strong evidence on this kind of matter. And now that I have come out about it, they've created like a sense of safety for like actual witnesses who have experienced kind of event.
A few questions for Mr. Graves. What percentage of UAP sightings in your belief go unreported by our pilots?
This is an approximation based off of my personal experience speaking with a number of pilots, but I would estimate we're somewhere near 5% reporting perhaps.
So like 95% basically don't report seeing UAPs.
That's just my personal estimate.
Pilots in particular have been silenced the most, both in the military and commercial, because some have actually received like cease and desist from like airline companies to prevent them like speaking up about what they saw. Thankfully, I feel like a lot more witnesses are gonna come out and share their story because like some light has been shed on this topic, and the pressure on them to keep them quiet has been like removed. And to be honest, after all this, I again have to say I respect David Grush for like coming out and talking about it, because regardless if you believe him or not, he's putting a pretty large red dot on his head for like going out in public and talking about it. Plus, I feel like him going under oath and like talking to like over 40 witnesses over a span of like 4 years would at the very least make him like more credible. Because even though a lot of people have gone on to news to like talk about aliens and their theories, nobody in history has really like gone out to like a court hearing with this like much of a scale and so much evidence and backup to like talk about it. And the Congress was definitely interested to see like what else he had to say behind closed doors. So even though a lot of people are angry that he couldn't share more, I think it's the safest option to like have more skips in the future to prevent him from getting more trouble and also get like the information straight. Just like Grush said, hopefully this is carried on in the future, and like there might be like a more transparent system to help witnesses report kind of sighting instead of like keep them quiet. Because this kind of stuff has only been like conservative like conspiracy theories, where at most people will joke about it and they won't like take it seriously. But with all this news coming out and David Grush being the lead of this movement, it looks like there's gonna be like a huge shift on like the national belief of like aliens. So it still blows my mind that this is what happened right now in the news, but I'm definitely excited to like where it's gonna go in the future. So hopefully you guys have a video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.